Let's talk about privilege. Let's talk about your privilege. Yes, I said your privilege, no matter who you are. Now, when I put the two words white privilege together, for obvious reasons, that automatically makes people feel really uncomfortable, especially white people. Growth can be uncomfortable. And if you're still willing to finish this podcast with me, you're demonstrating a willingness to hear another perspective, and that's a sign of growth. Let's continue. The white privilege of being a white man is a category of white privilege that is pretty much at the top of every power structure in America and many societies around the world. And then you've got the category of the white privilege of being a white woman who's only second to a white man in terms of the power structure in America and again, many societies around the world. Remember, this podcast is called Keeping It Real with Dr. Anita. Those statements are real. Now, let's take a deep breath and decouple the word white from the word privilege. If you are a firstborn child, that's a category of privilege. If you are the baby of the family, that's also a category of privilege. If you are a woman of any persuasion, you have privilege because of the ability to birth new life. If you are a first generation high school or college graduate, you have privilege of career options and lifestyles that come with education. If you are a knowledge worker, you have privilege that allows you to continue earning a living even during a pandemic because you have the option of working remotely. If you're a C-suite executive, you certainly have privilege that affords you a myriad of options in a still reeling economy, such as opportunities to hire nannies and arrange private study groups for your children among your peers until we get the school and mask debates settled. And how about the privilege of being what some would consider to be non-compliant in terms of the mask and vaccine debates? I'm not taking sides here. I'm just bringing different categories of privilege to our collective attention. I challenge you right now to think of any other category of privilege that you can claim, and then realize that yes, you do have privilege. We all do in at least one category if we think hard enough. An example I use with leaders is the person on the team who manages to get out of certain tasks because they claim they can't do something for whatever reason. In such an instance, that team member is leveraging the category of victim for the privilege of getting out of certain tasks. Think about that. Now think about this. Even through the pain we endure that is caused by someone else, we have the privilege of understanding the depths of despair to a degree that we never want anyone else to feel because of something we've done. Yes, there's even privilege in our pain. Sometimes it's even a privilege to connect to someone else through the pain of simply being human. So when we reframe privilege into various categories that extend beyond white privilege, we can all relate to privilege in a way that allows us to use whatever category of privilege we can claim to benefit someone else. Only then can we begin to reframe our understanding of privilege and refocus on human affirming behaviors that lead to reimagining and co-creating a future we all want. In the same way that white males can use their privilege to even the playing field for everyone else can use their privilege, however they identify that privilege, to make things better for someone else. Notice that I didn't say we could all relate to each other from the same starting point in life. I said that we can all relate to similar experiences of being human in a way that allows us to use our privilege to the benefit of others, such as the human experiences of feeling included and feeling excluded. No matter who you are, there has been at least one time in your life when you experienced the sense that you didn't belong. It's more than a feeling of loneliness. It can lead to feelings of being devalued, demoralized, discouraged, disillusioned, dismissed, and the list goes on. And that's really the purpose of diversity, inclusion, and belonging work. It's not about white privilege in terms of worrying about being white. White people can't change being white any more than I can change being black. None of us needs to worry about changing who we are because what makes us different makes us valuable. And value has privilege. The issue is how you use your privilege in whatever category you claim it to make things better for other people. And if you think about it, that's just paying it forward in a more significant context. Paying it forward may require you to cultivate a change in behaviors that actively demonstrates a combination of love for humanity and laboring for justice as a labor of love. We all are responsible to pay it forward based on the privilege that we all have. The privilege that I have as an educated woman of color means that I have the privilege of sharing with others what I know based on my lived experiences in a way that meets people where they are in their personal journey of diversity, inclusion, and belonging that may happen to begin in the workplace. I am careful not to use my privilege in pursuit of this work because I'm right, but because I prioritize meeting people where they are in a way that my message can be received in their heart, work itself into their mind, and manifest in their behavior. So, what do you do with your privilege? First of all, how can you identify different privileges that you do have? Like me, you probably have more than one. What does your privilege look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? What does it act like? And how can you transfer the benefits of your privilege to someone else in ways that are meaningful and inclusive? Sharing your privilege doesn't mean taking away anything from yourself. It means adding to someone else. And that's the beauty and benefit of privilege, not for ourselves, but for other people. I want you to think about that. Seriously, sit down and think about the privileges that you have, not from a standpoint of shame and blame, especially if you happen to be a white male. I don't want you to think about privilege in terms of beating yourself up. I want you to think about your privilege in terms of, wow, what can I do to help someone else? That is a perspective of knowing and growing through your privilege. And that's something that we can all do. Yes, we can find privilege in anything if we think about it long enough. And here's the key: privilege can be used to include, and privilege can be used to exclude. Which side of the equation do you want to be on? That's what we're going to be talking about in this month's podcast as we celebrate Labor Day. This time last year, we talked about laboring for justice as the world processed the murder of George Floyd. This year, we're going to slightly reframe our perspective and talk about laboring for justice as a labor of love and explore what we can stop, start, do more of, and do less of in pursuit of justice with my Allies in Action crew. Next, for my lived experiences segment, I'm going to have the opportunity of talking with my engineer, Brian Colburn of Sitch Radio, to explore his aha moments while listening to some of my recorded content for a new course I'm developing. Finally, we're going to wrap the month's topic by having a real conversation with last year's guest and subject matter expert, Ms. Lori Condinas, the recently appointed president of the Los Angeles chapter of the National Action Network, and hear why laboring for justice is truly a labor of love for her. I look forward to having you join me and our guests every week this month as we celebrate Labor Day and the privilege of laboring for justice as a labor of love. Until next week, this is Dr. Anita reminding you to stay blessed and keep it real.